Thanks everyone for coming back for another segment of Michigan Conservative Roundtable. TJ here for another TJ Talk. And in this segment I'm going to talk about the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Its history, why it was written, and it went through some revisions. I think most know of at least the one revision, but there is actually a couple other revisions also, and why those revisions were made. I'll start with this. Part of what drove me on this topic is I've become so disheartened at the desecration of the flag. And while I'm talking, even though I'm going to be talking about the Pledge of Allegiance, I see it as an extension of the flag. And to see people burning it, this whole Betsy Ross thing that just came out lately, it just irritated me, the decline of patriotism. I think of it as connecting the dots, okay? And you got people burning the flag, and something that bothers me almost as much are the apologists. It's only a piece of cloth. I beg to differ, okay? It's not just a piece of cloth. Marty has mentioned in a previous monologue at least once, and perhaps more, about how public education has failed us. And in the Pledge of Allegiance, I feel they have failed us. They no longer deem the Pledge of Allegiance important. I mean, they're not saying it in schools anymore. When I grew up, we said it every single day. In fact, elementary, junior high, senior high, and in junior high and senior high, we had the intercom system at our school, and it was said while someone was saying it over the intercom, we would be saying it right along with the person over the intercom as we were saying it. And schools don't say it anymore. The pledge is deemed no longer important, and if the Pledge of Allegiance is no longer important, why respect the flag? Okay? And if you're not going to respect the flag, why respect the country? So, anyways, the Pledge of Allegiance, it was authored by a man by the name of Francis Bellamy. He was a Baptist minister, and I'm going to be honest, in doing some of my research here, some of the sites mention him as a socialist Baptist minister. When I went to the Smithsonian site, they made no reference of him being a socialist, so I have to wonder if some of these sites, if liberalism is just not taking a swipe at the author of the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know. I can tell you the Smithsonian site did not reference him as a socialist Baptist minister, okay? He wrote the pledge in 1892, and the main reason why this came to be was this was 30 years after the Civil War, in which the country was viciously divided, and because they were so, it was only 30 years since the Civil War, there was still the concern that the country had not become really united. And they were hoping that if they could come up with a pledge to the flag of the United States, might that better unite the country. So Francis Bellamy wrote the pledge, and the first time it was recited, I found this interesting, first time it was recited was on Columbus Day, October 21, 1892, by 4,000 high school boys. And I don't know why they chose Columbus Day. I find it interesting that Columbus Day was October 21st was the first time it was officially recited as a pledge. And at this time, I would like to read the original pledge, and then we'll talk about the revisions. The original pledge read, "I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." That was the original pledge as written by Francis Bellamy. It would go through a series of revisions. Francis Bellamy made the first revision. He added the word "to" just prior to the phrase "the Republic." so that it would read, "and to the Republic." He felt it gave the pledge better cadence. And you know what? I agree. So that was the first revision. The second revision was in 1923 at a National Flag Conference presided over by the American Legion and the Daughters of the American Revolution. They decided to change the phrase "my flag" to "the flag of the United States." At the time, as you know, we always think of ourselves as a country of immigrants, okay? And you know, as more and more immigrants were coming into the country, there was a growing concern that the immigrants would still have allegiance to the countries from which they came, and they wanted the immigrants, and especially their children, or their offspring, they wanted them to understand that their allegiance needed to be to the United States, not necessarily from the country which they came. Part of the reason why I'm making this point is, look at what the squad's been doing lately. You know, you know, you need to have allegiance to this country, not from the country you left. Okay. I didn't know this. Leading up to World War II, during when you recited the Pledge of Allegiance, it included a type of hand gesture which was a type of salute. I didn't realize this, and they changed it at the beginning of as World War II, onset of World War II. They changed it because it looked too much like the Nazi salute, and so what they did was they changed to the right hand over the heart. And I got to tell you, it's unfortunate we weren't doing that to begin with. But in any event, and even though it wasn't a revision to the pledge, it was a revision to the way it was recited, and I really like that revision. In 1943, the Pledge of Allegiance came under scrutiny, driven by the Jehovah's Witness. They would contend that the pledge was a type of veneration of a graven image, the flag being a graven image. I don't know about that. The Supreme Court would later rule that no child would be compelled to recite the pledge. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that either. June 14, 1954, "under God" was inserted into the phrase "one nation, indivisible," so that it would read "one nation, under God, indivisible." The reason for that revision was the spread of communism at the time. Communism was spreading throughout Eastern Europe into Asia. China was expanding, southward. And, if you understand communism, atheism runs hand in hand with communism. So this was done as a pushback to communism. Okay? Of course, we insert the "under God" into the pledge. So then an atheist by the name of Michael Newdow, he would come to challenge that phrase, which ultimately ended up in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would rule that it had no special religious significance and equated it to the "in God we trust" phrase on our money. So here we end up today. The Pledge of Allegiance is irrelevant. The flag's a symbol of oppression. Patriotism is vilified. And I kind of feel like we've come full circle politically as to why it was originally authored. Think about it. It was authored because they were concerned over a fractured country. Are we not a fractured country today? They wanted immigrants to know that they needed to pledge allegiance to this country. Today, immigrants really have no reason to even try and assimilate. Okay? Thank you, squad. And patriotism is mocked. So I feel like we have the current political climate is exactly why the pledge was originally written. So in ending, I would like to recite the pledge in its current form as revised, and it goes: I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for watching, everyone. And as we say at the Michigan Conservative Roundtable, be safe, watch your six, and don't tread on me.